Welcome, welcome. I am John, and here we are today talking about what the heck is the difference between an $80 bottle of wine and a $12 bottle of wine that you'd find in a store. All right, first things first. It is very common to be in a restaurant or a store or a tasting or anywhere and be very confused why the heck you would ever spend $80 on a bottle of wine anyway. But let's start from this. All we're trying to do today is give you a couple facts about why they're different. Obviously, there's a million reasons, and talk about the things you're gonna taste for to taste the difference if you're ever so lucky as to go to a restaurant and have the opportunity to taste something a little bit more expensive. First of all, Josh here is the most popular brand in the United States right now, and they sell roughly 60 million bottles a year of that wine, so it's a lot of wine. This, on the other hand, is Turnbull, and by contrast, this is a wine, about 15,000 bottles a year are produced. And so just that alone should give you a little bit of a hint. But let me just tell you a couple things really to look for. First of all, the one thing that won't surprise you is that if you go to an expensive grocery store or something like that, you're gonna see all the fruit is kind of perfect, right? They throw out or only buy fruit that is perfect. If you go to a lower price grocery store, you'll see at a cheaper price, you'll see cheaper fruit. That is true of these wines. So Josh is labeled California. The fruit generally comes from California. That's fine, right? But it is not the same thing as this. It's marked Napa Valley. We know where Turnbull is. We know the quality of fruit, and anything that they might not use in their wine would go maybe to a wholesaler, which would be sold to somebody like Josh. So first of all, the fruit's gonna be better. But the second thing has to do with tannins and how they're produced and the winemaking process. So obviously when you have a cheaper wine, you don't have the luxury of time either. And so you start doing things a little bit differently. Now remember, tannin is that kind of dry feeling like drinking tea or something like that. It comes from grape skins, and it comes from grape stems, and it comes from other parts of the grape. And the way in which that is imparted through something that's an $80 bottle of wine is a process of soaking, of using the barrel, of finding the right balance. To do a mass-produced wine, you kind of have to cheat a little bit. And the way that you do that is basically you use more of the stems. In the case of Josh, you almost certainly are using wood chips instead of like barrels. Use wood chips in order to impart that wood flavor. And so you're gonna get a long way toward wine tasting like wine, and you're not gonna be able to tell the difference unless you're tasting them side by side. So that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna taste them side by side. I'm gonna show you the differences, and this is gonna be your homework assignment. So you get to drink some nice wine, expensive wine too, and see if you can tell the differences that I'm tasting. All right, welcome to the corner of my bar. So this is what we're gonna do. We've got the Josh, we've got the Turnbull, so we've got the more, the cheaper wine, right? The more regular everyday wine. We've got this special wine. And so we are going to taste and compare, and I want you to do this with me, or you could do it after. So the first thing we do, remember when we're tasting, is that we are gonna look. So we are looking at the color. Now the one thing that I will note about this wine is that I see already that it's much lighter around the corners on the edges than the other. And I can kind of see that it's clarity, okay? So, and it is a very consistent red. Let's take a look at this one. So as we look at this one, you'll see a darker color, and then you'll see a little bit more gradation. It's also more purple than red, and so that's a little bit of a difference between the two just from sight. Now remember, we're gonna look for the legs as we look, and so we're gonna turn the glass, and you're gonna see on the sides, you're going to see what it looks like tiers. And those tiers or legs will tell you about the alcohol content. I could see here that they are a little bit longer and dropping a little bit slower. That means that this is gonna have a little bit more alcohol. Now, here's a little cheat for you. A commercial brand like Josh, they are looking to do what McDonald's does. They want consistency. the Josh wines are almost always gonna be exactly 13.5%. They're able to do that, right? Because they have so much of it, they're able to mix it together. The Turnbull, on the other hand, it's really gonna be dictated by that year's growth. So this is a 2018 Turnbull, and I can see from the label that it's 14.1. Okay, we've looked. Number one on our 3 S's, right? We've seen. So now we're gonna smell. And so remember, we're gonna give it a nice big swirl. Oxygen is the friend of wine, and we're gonna get our nose in there. Okay, a little bit muted, so I'm gonna give it another swirl. But the one thing that I can tell you is these are the same grapes. So these are both Cabernet. So I'm really smelling exactly what it is that I'm supposed to be smelling, right? That black currant, those black fruits. And I do get a little bit of the wood smell, right? I get the vanilla and other stuff. Now, remember, because of the way that this is produced, I happen to know that they did a couple cheat codes to do that, so it's gonna be a little bit different. Now we're gonna try the Turnbull, and we're gonna see what different smells we get. Okay, this is just comparatively, okay? It is a richer smell. So if you could imagine the difference between kind of biting into, you know, a McDonald's hamburger versus kind of a Wagyu burger, this has that, right? It's a richness to it. And you'll only be able to tell this when you have them next to each other, because this is not bad. This one smells tastier. There's also a little bit of blue fruit in this. And so I could start to smell a little bit of the blueberries and some others more complex scents. So that's a little bit of a difference. And finally, we're gonna do taste. Okay, as it coats the wine, the one thing that coats my mouth, the one thing I could tell you about the wine is, first of all, it's very good, okay? But it's very fruity, it's almost sweet. And it is a dry wine, it's obviously not sweet. But those tastes, right, are pretty linear, and they don't last terribly long. So for a couple seconds, I taste the wine, then it disappears. This wine, right, has more complexity. It has various tastes as it goes through, and I can still taste the difference as we sit here now. So let me tell you the number one difference between these two wines. It is length. That is the amount of time that the nice taste lingers in your mouth. So next time that you are in a place where you have the opportunity to try 2 wines and you go for the more expensive one, that's what you're looking for. And almost always you're gonna notice the difference. So cheers, hope that you enjoy them both, and make sure that you try this at home and see what the differences are between the 2 wines. So next time you have a special treat, you'll know how to enjoy it a little better.